Over the years, the Counter-Strike meta has changed so many times, and we've had some pretty broken ones, from the AUG being a Negev with a scope on it to the UMP being better than most rifles. But for the past couple years, the meta has stayed relatively the same. So is it time for a meta change in Counter-Strike 2? The current meta in Counter-Strike goes a little something like this. The best rifle in the game is the AK-47, with the M4A4 and M4A1S being a close second and third option. The AUG and SG aren't that bad, but the SG has slower movement speed than the AK, with a scope that makes you even slower, and the AUG is more expensive than the more expensive rifle on the CT side. As for the budget rifles, the FAMAS is completely worthless, I'll get more into that later, and the Galil is pretty much an M4A4 with slower movement speed and more recoil. The AWP is also pretty good, but you're only using this gun if you're feeling like the guy who looks like XQC. There's the Scout and the Auto Sniper, but you know what people are doing when they're using these weapons. So we have the Galil and AK-47 on the T side, as well as both the M4s and the AWP being viable options. I'm not going to go through and mention every weapon that is good or bad, but I think there's something weird when we look at the SMG category. The problem with the current meta in Counter-Strike is there's not enough variety for the amount of weapons in the game. There are currently 34 different guns in Counter-Strike, with only about 10 of them actually being used at a pretty high rate. Now, don't get me wrong, there are people out there that still prefer to use non-meta guns. Honestly, those guns are not that bad. But if we're talking about getting the most out of the money you're spending each round, some guns don't have a place in the current gun meta. For example, let's talk about the MP9 on the CT side. This is the best SMG in Counter-Strike 2, and it's not even close. Why would you spend money on an MP7 that costs $1,500 when you could just buy the MP9 for cheaper and is the better SMG? Not only that, this is the main reason the FAMAS is so bad. I've compared these guns multiple times in the past, but the main takeaway is the accuracy at range on the MP9 is higher than the FAMAS. You heard that right. An SMG has higher accuracy at range than a rifle in the game. It seems like every game that I play, I have to deal with somebody just abusing the MP9 the whole time. It's cheap, you get $600 per kill, and you can hit so many shots when you're jumping in the air and holding down left click. Counter-Strike 2 has changed so much since the initial release in September, and the cheating situation may not be perfect, but I think the current SMG meta is just so boring. Like, what am I supposed to do in some of these situations? People are just holding W and left click, and there's nothing I can do about it. So what needs to change for more variety in the current gun meta? But before we get into that, let's hear from today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is Clash.gg. They are a fair and trusted site that allow you to play your favorite games like case battles, roulette, and more. Be sure to be over the age of 18 and gamble responsibly. You can also use my code PythonCS for an extra bonus when you deposit. So check them out with the link in the description. I think one of two things needs to happen. I know you guys have loved every single idea I've had in the past, but these ones will actually be good, I promise. First thing that needs to happen is the MP9 needs to be nerfed. Like I said before, it makes no sense that it's more accurate at range than the FAMAS. So I think they should nerf that, the reload time, and give it more recoil. The second thing that needs to happen is some of the guns that are not being used as much need to be buffed. Like, who's using the MP5? Like, if I see somebody using the MP5 in my games, I'm literally tilted. Or even the SG553. The movement speed should be the same as the AK because it's more expensive. But keep the scoped in movement speed the same because that would be a little bit too broken. And we all remember what happened when this gun was in the meta. Or the third thing that could happen is Valve could completely break the game by adding something or changing something that makes no sense at all. So let's buff the SG and AUG again, or make the sawed-off only cost $700, or even add an RPG to the game. I don't care. I'm just tired of the MP9 being the best gun in the game.